Hi everybody, and welcome to this how-to video on ramping up your spring and summer walking. So this is going to be a moving and grooving video. So for more information regarding everything from pedometers to footwear, please download my online booklet below, because we're going to get started here. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Lori Michelson. I'm a personal trainer, Pilates and yoga instructor, and I am obsessed with all things habits related to our health and happiness. Walking ranks right up there. So we're going to get started right away here. You might be wondering why I have this stool here. Now we're going to start with a warm-up, and I'm going to talk about the warm-up as I'm doing this. Now you could have a step close to you, you could have a bench, anything that you have that you're able to put one leg up on. So I'm going to take this leg up. And so what's going on with this guy right here? First of all, it's easy to do. It's a dynamic stretch before our walk. So we are going to lean forward slightly, not into, making sure not to curve into the low back, but open up that hip. So this is a hip flexor opening. We're going to add our shoulders in there with a nice inhale. And then we're going to exhale, take our sitting bones and our tailbone back and see about straightening that front leg. Now you'll see my back is straight on this. I'm doing my hamstrings on this leg and my calf on that leg. I'm going to inhale and open those shoulders. Exhale and stretch back. And just for a couple of breaths here, I'm going to roll forward, opening up that back hip, stretching that back calf muscle, and now doing the hamstring and the calf muscle on the front. And last two here, inhale and exhale back. Now there is a little bit of debate about whether or not you do a inhale and exhale. Debate on whether or not you need to do a warm-up as I switch legs before your walk. Now here's the thing. If you explore this and experiment with this and notice, inhaling and exhaling, that your walk feels easier, that you have, let's say, less stiffness and discomfort in your hips or your back or your knees, then the warm-up is helpful. Now I am a big fan of warming up before my walk in a dynamic sequence, right? So that I'm moving through here, and this is 4 and back. But it is important as well, and definitely when you are warmer, to do your stretch at the end. So the stretch movement at the end, again cooling down. So I'm maybe keeping my chest open here, coming on back. There we go. So about 5 of those, 3 to 5 each way to get the hips and the legs ready to go. Now I'm just going to walk out my legs here. So a dynamic stretch for the quad muscles at the front, getting ready again. So it's really important to notice what is the difference between when you kind of run out the door and start your walk right away, and so I'm going to hold it there. So I've done probably about 10 of those. Now if you're not worried or not wanting to work your balance, grab onto something here, and we're just going to do a few breaths of a static quad stretch, especially if you get tight around the knees. This is a wonderful one to start with. So we did a dynamic moving through, and then we'll just top it up here. So on the other side through here, I dust this guy through. I like to catch that leg right back, and you do that in a way that feels good for your knees. Again, if your knees aren't liking this guy, you stay with that dynamic stretch, not having to hold it here after. But if you want that extra little bit, to do that. Okay, so we'll finish up with this. Roll those shoulders. So if you're running out the door and you're just heading into your walk, you want to get that walk in, just make sure that you start slowly, let your body warm up, and ease into your walk. But really notice that difference when you do a few of these extra little warm-up stretches at the beginning. Notice how your walk feels. Okay, so from here I'm just going to tuck this guy out of the way, and we're going to get into 3 techniques for ramping up your walking. So you want to be at the level that you're walking comfortably for about 30 minutes, and you're looking for a little bit of information and technique to spice things up a little bit. So the first one we're going to talk about is adding intervals. And intervals can be added into your walk after you've been walking for at least 5 minutes. Feel like you're into your pace, into your rhythm. And what you can do if you have a pedometer or a watch is after that point you can walk for, let's say, 2 minutes, and then ramp it up for a minute. So you could be following on your watch, or you can be ramping up, doing a little bit faster walk, certainly when you start off, not ramping up too much, from light post to light post or from hydro pole to hydro pole. And it takes a little bit of playing to experiment with finding that 30 seconds to a minute of ramping it up, how many poles you do there, and when you start this. So it takes, again, a little bit of exploring, but it adds in that ramping up quite quickly. So when you're thinking about going a little bit faster, just watch that you're keeping the arms pumping by your side here, that the shoulders don't end up here, getting tightness in and around those shoulders, and that you don't overstride to start. So what you're trying to do is just to cover a little bit more distance in the same amount of time. So the ramping up, you're thinking heel toe, okay, and shoulder or arms pumping, and that will take you through that period of time that you're going to increase your heart rate. You're going to start to feel and hear your breath a little bit more. So playing with that a little bit, again, keeping your head on top of your spine, pumping those arms, making sure that you are going heel toe through there, playing with that and noticing how you feel. So you wouldn't want to do that every single day when you start to add your interval training. Just add it in for a day, go back to your normal walking, and then maybe add it in the next day. So that is adding intervals. The second technique that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to pick my poles up right here. And actually this is, there are various poles, so I'm going to talk about for just a few minutes here because I am not a certified Nordic walk instructor, so I have to say that right from the get-go. So your poles, I'm going to recommend, if you are wanting to try this, that you visit your local library or recreation, YWCA, and see about just renting some poles for a couple of walks. Notice how you feel, and also talking to them about any clinics that they might have on Nordic walking, because it's really helpful to get a little bit more information before you head out there. But I'm just wanting to do this to pique your interest a little bit because I've added it into my walking and quite like it. So when you're playing with exploring this, I would recommend that you go out on your own, because when you are learning your Nordic walking, there is some extraneous pole movement, and my husband can tell you, yes, I have knocked him a little bit with my poles. Not a great idea to go out with your dog either, so I'm going to put that out there right now. But what the Nordic pole walking does is that it adds quite a bit of an intensity. So even as I'm at my side here, when you are walking with the poles, you have you're creating more work around the core, you are working your arm muscles a little bit more, and you are actually getting into a faster rhythm. Most of the information that I read about Nordic pole walking, and I have done a couple of workshops, is that for sure you can burn more calories in the same amount of time because you are exerting more of an effort. So from here, when you look at the position of my arms when I come forward and I am digging that, I'm going to move up back a little bit here. So you are putting that pole in and you are bringing yourself through and pushing off. You've got some beautiful tricep work in there. You have that alternating core work as your arm is going forward and pushing back. And once you get into that rhythm, again, you're going to leave your walking partner behind if you're normally walking with somebody. And that's actually how you know that you've increased the intensity through here. So just basically to start off, you want to have the poles at 90 degrees, about that right beside you. And then when that arm goes forward, you're a little out of that 90 degrees. So a little bit less in through here. And that stops me from going up into my neck and shoulders. So basically what I do is I just start by dragging the poles behind me, and then the poles naturally start to come into a position beside you that is supporting your walking. Because as you start to naturally walk in your natural gait, the poles catch up. But what happens if we think about trying to match the poles alternating with opposite steps, then it gets a little bit overwhelming. But here's the thing, it will feel awkward at first, absolutely. And but as you work with it, it will get more natural, and you will want to add this in, perhaps not every single walk, but for 1 day or 2 days a week, just to spice things up a little bit. So there are some, let's say, myths about the walking poles. One of them is that people that are using the poles are older. That's one thing that comes up quite often. Or are needing some help in terms of balance. Now, in terms of the poles, it's actually not recommended that if you have some balance issues, that you're not really feeling good on your feet through injury or other issues, then the poles actually are not for you. But if you've got some stiffness in your hips, your back, or your knees, and you want a little bit of support through here, clients that have used the poles have said they are fantastic to be able to give that support, being able to work their way through a walk with decreased discomfort, decreased pain in different joints. So that's another reason to be adding those poles in. So head down to your, again, library, recreation department, YWCA, talk to them. If you're trying this out, again, just start in this very comfortable position. Give it a try. There are some great YouTube videos as well on Nordic walking poles. So I'm going to tuck these guys off to the side and talk about the final, no, and this is not just, it's not all inclusive here, but again, one of my other techniques to ramp up your spring walking, and that is to add hills. So this makes us look for a variety of different paths, different walking areas in our community, which is great as well, because you don't always want to stay on the same path, just in terms, again, of your hips, your back, alternating both sides of your body. So when you head out in your community, look for adding a hill, let's say after about 5 to 10 minutes of moderate walking again, and a moderate grade to add in. You might add in one hill your first go, you might add a couple of hills in your second go, but just make sure that they're moderate. Know that when you add in hills, particularly when you're going down, it is a little bit tougher on the knees. So I'm not recommending, if you have knee issues, adding hills in if they're bothering your knees. So again, I would not do hills every single day. I would add them in terms of variety during the week. And your technique doesn't change with the hills, except that you might be powering up a little bit more, and just being aware that you're not braking on the way down. Now, if there aren't very many hills for you to choose from, I've actually gone out, used a hill, gone up the hill, down the hill 3 times, and then continued on with my walk. Because I know logistically sometimes it's hard to find in your walk 2 or 3 hills that work in that way. So feel free to do that as well. So 3 ways that I'm suggesting ramping things up: interval walking for 30 seconds to 1 minute, playing and adding in the poles, and then adding in some hills. So I talk about that a little bit more in the booklet below, how you might make your week flow with that so that you're not doing the same thing every day. And again, that adds variety as well. Now, the last thing I'm going to address is I do get questions on, should I be walking with weights? I'm not a huge fan of walking with weights because, again, it tends to bring us up into our neck and shoulders. But at the end of your walk, if you have a strength training program, that is a beautiful time to add it in because you're already in that exercise mode, you're already nicely warmed up, and then add 1 to 3 sets of your normal strength training. At the very, let's say, least, what you can do, and this is one of my favorite things to do, is at the end of a walk, come back, 1 plank. Work your way up to 1 minute. So what you do through that, and you've been walking and you've been working those legs, come back and work that core. Now it could be push-ups as well for 1 minute, but I'm suggesting keep it simple, simple, simple. Come back, do 1 plank for 1 minute as your goal, and then do the cool down exercises. Can be exactly what we just did right there with our warm-up exercises, or if you have your favorite stretches that you like to do at the end of your walk when you're nice and warm, that is your time to do it outside or move it on inside. Okay, so I hope this gave you some new ideas for ramping up your spring and summer walking. If you have any more questions or you're looking for more information in terms of all things habits, please visit my website at lauriemichelson.com. Thanks so much for joining in. Enjoy your spring and summer walking, and I'll see you again probably here for a fall and winter top up. Bye for now.